My name's Brian. I'm the senior pastor at Hillside Church. My journey to pastoral ministry was kind of an unlikely one. I grew up in a Christian home. The Bible, Jesus was everywhere, but I didn't care about God. But when I was 17, I finally met God for the very first time, and that changed everything. Then after high school, went to a one-year Bible school, fell in love with theology, fell in love with God. I then went to a four-year school in Portland, Oregon. And that's where I studied Greek and theology, and I really fell in love more and more with the Bible, with who God is and how He's interacting with the world. I had no direction where I wanted to go afterwards, and so I just loved the Bible, I loved Jesus, I wanted to figure out what God had called me to do. I had graduated high school with like a 2.8 GPA. I had never read a full book in my life. I was the worst student ever. And so to put me as the guy who's got to give this instructional, this teaching, this sermon, was like, no, you got the wrong guy, Lord. When I look at the story of Moses, he was reluctant. He wanted others to fulfill that role, and I identify a lot with that. I might be the biggest hindrance to my own growth in this. It's easy for me to believe doubts or lies. I'm not good enough, I don't have enough experience, what if I don't know the right way? So I really think God has been patient with me in my lack of self-confidence, but I think the Lord has been faithful with a Moses-like figure like myself. So my experience being a senior pastor is brief. I've been a senior pastor now for a year and several months. I would say on the whole, I've needed the Lord even more than I realize. I need Him for sustaining me in preaching, because there are days when family life is challenging, but I still got to get up and preach. There are days when church life is challenging, but I still got to get up and preach. What I've been learning is to trust in the Lord with what He has said and He has called me, while giving myself grace to make mistakes. Why do I get up to preach the gospel every Sunday? I preach the gospel because I believe it's the power of God. And that's what Paul says in Romans. There is a better way to live out there than the ways that secularism or the world or culture is providing for you. There is one who is in charge and who has outlined ways to live, and who does want you to be reconciled, to overcome your brokenness, etc. And so the Old Testament is anticipation to Jesus. And then the New Testament is attestation to how Christ did do all of that. The New Testament is all about the gospel. The Old Testament's about the gospel because God is about the gospel. Everything comes down to the gospel. That's what Paul preaches to all of his churches. He preaches the gospel, the good news that God has come. He has made us right through His death and resurrection, and He will come back and restore all things to a better Eden than before. The greatest privilege on earth is to proclaim Jesus Christ as King. God saved me when I was 17, and God worked with me when I was growing up in the faith. He discipled me, He was patient upon me. Now He's called me to be a herald of the gospel, one who partners with Him in His mission to proclaim that Christ is King and that there's no other rivals. And I find no greater joy than to do what God has called me to do, for His glory and for our good. And I don't know where that's going to lead me, but I can't imagine being a part of anything else.